Hey, I'm John Felt. This is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing, 18th of January. You know, it's turning out to be a pretty harsh winter over many areas, especially with some really cold weather and throw in some snow and ice as well. As we get into the middle part of the month and the latter part of January, looks like we're going to have a lot more cold weather, plus we're going to have a couple winter storms as well. Let's get started with today's Weekly Weather Briefing. Well, first of all, this is our threats assessment. This is mainly early this week, and what we have here is we have the northeast U.S. Snow, and that is going to perhaps put a fresh blanket of snow on the ground for the inauguration on Monday for Washington, D.C. Then we're going to have this really cold weather pushing into the area, and much of it's already pushed into the Midwest and northern Rockies. We have another winter storm coming through for the south that I'll be talking about as well. So right now that cold air has pushed in. We have cold weather advisories in many parts of the upper Midwest. We have high pressure in Canada, and those winds are coming around like this. And so strong gusty winds, or wind chills, are significant as well. Here's the cold front pushing to the east, and this is in the form of snow in many spots. Take a look at temperatures this morning, well below zero up in the upper Midwest. Now, what about precipitation last week? Well, we did have some snow in spots, and I'm starting to keep an eye on this because we are getting some accumulating snow in the upper Mississippi, but it's a small area right now. We also had some rain and snow along the coast. Actually, this was rain, but we also had some snow in spots. But most of the nation last week, not all that much. So where's the snow on the ground? Well, here we go. Certainly you can see in the western U.S., the Rockies with all the snow, the Ohio River Valley. Now remember, with the La Nina, this is where we would expect some action, and it's working out pretty good as what you'd expect for a La Nina winter. We're beginning to get this snow beginning to pile up here, and that's certainly not unusual for this time. And we've melted a good part of the snow in Iowa this past week, a couple mild days, and quite a bit of snow in here as well. But look at Kansas. We had some really heavy snow in that area, and snow does linger on the ground. Okay, so temperatures last week, and this was the weekly average. You can see below normal to some degree in green, above normal to some degree in yellow. This week we're going to have lots stronger temperature departures, and we're going to be seeing, I think, down in this range when I do the briefing next weekend. Okay, so let's start off by looking at the big picture, and we're in an Alaska ridge pattern. This is the Alaska ridge, red being a ridge of high pressure, and the jet stream bows to the north along that Alaska ridge, and then it dips down to the south over most of the U.S., and that's why we're having such cold weather. Now, as we get into February, the first week of February, it's possible we could go to a Pacific ridge pattern. And what that does is that brings some moderation to the eastern U.S., and it sort of pools this cold weather in this region right here. Now, I've got a question mark to that, and I'm going to show you a graphic on why I have that question mark on what that might mean. Okay, so right now you can see that Alaska ridge and that pattern. So the big story this week, the clear-cut story, is going to be unusually cold weather for many areas and not a lot of precipitation in the Arctic air. Now, right where that Arctic air sort of stalls, where we get a boundary down here, that Arctic front, that's where we could have some action this week. And by Wednesday, you can see that the polar vortex has shifted a bit up to the north. So the coldest air will probably come the first half of the week, but we're still under the dip in the jet stream the second half, so it'll still be temperatures below normal. So what does that look like as far as temperatures? Well, look at that deep blue the next 5 days, well below normal. Second 5 days, some modest moderation. Third 5 days, we begin to shift over to that new weather regime, and this is where I have a question mark here. What will this cold air do? What will this cold air, it's actually way up in Canada, is that just going to sort of be limited here, or will that sink to the south? And there are some models towards the first week of February that show we could have another Arctic blast that will slide to the south. That's way out there. let's just keep an eye on it. Now this week we'll have our own Arctic blast. Take a look at Tuesday morning low temperatures. It looks like it's going to be quite cold. Matter of fact, I think these negative numbers are going to actually go down further south than indicated on this map. Okay, so that's temperature. Let's talk about precipitation, and I think our focus this week will be, look at this. There's that lake effect snow. We have the north wind, cold north wind blowing over the lakes. I put out a post last week that showed we're beginning to get ice build up, and that's going to go faster this week. But there's still a lot of open water, so we're going to have lake effect snow. So this is that southern track. Now the cold front, the Arctic front, is going to sort of move down here and sort of stall or slow. And right along that is where we're going to have precipitation. And right along the northern, where we get some of that colder air, or the precipitation, we could, into the colder air, that's where we could have some issues. So 2 winter storms to keep an eye on this week. The first one's coming this weekend in the northeast U.S. I think I talked about that already. But here's the one on, this is late Tuesday, so this is early in the week. We're going to have an area of low pressure pushing up right through here, this track right here. And some areas of Texas all the way up into Atlanta, maybe Birmingham. Parts of the southeast U.S. could get ice and snow. And it could be significant in some spots. So let's keep an eye on that. We can see this is just the first several days here, but this is where that possible track could go right here. So keep an eye on that for a winter storm. Okay, now let's look at week 2. I talked about week 1. Well, here's week 2. We're beginning to set the stage for that really cold air pooling in the northwest U.S. Maybe as we get outside of week 2 or late in week 2, that could sink south. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Here's our precipitation. The southeast U.S. looks like it's been a wet area, and that looks like that'll continue. And maybe we could get some more snow in that Ohio Valley region because that's going to be in the coldest air. So again, the risk this week looks like it's going to be several in the immediate future. The northeast U.S. winter storm, almost the entire nation, very cold weather, and then a winter storm perhaps along the southern tier of the U.S. as we get into early week. That's a very cold briefing. Stay warm. Take care.